welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at BTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the developing story with reference to the US sanctions that the Biden administration has proposed with reference to Pakistan's ballistic missile capabilities. And this is, of course, something that Pakistan has responded with previously also through the Foreign Office, talking about how this is biased and without any credible evidence, and would, of course, impact the strategic assets of the country and would also impact regional peace and stability. And, of course, Pakistan's relationship with the US is an important one, and there is, of course, no room for any such accusations or sanctions with regards to Pakistan's ability to protect its own nuclear programs and then, of course, move forward in a peaceful manner. Something that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has reiterated today as well, talking about how there is going to be no compromise on Pakistan's nuclear program and that the US sanctions are baseless, and this is something that, of course, needs to be reviewed in further detail. Whether or not, of course, that is going to happen under the Trump administration also remains to be seen, and what sort of difference can we actually expect from him and, of course, his team is something that will develop in the future. But, of course, with reference to what has happened previously as well, we've seen such measures being taken without any real credible evidence, and at the same time, we've also witnessed double standards throughout the international community that the US has employed. And so we're going to be looking in further detail into what exactly this entails and how do we move forward in terms of making sure that this scenario is accepted by the international community, particularly the US, that Pakistan is a responsible nuclear state and a peaceful nuclear state. And this is, of course, something that needs to be understood by the US and the international community. And so how do we navigate the US sanctions around this missile program against the NDC and 3 other commercial entities? Of course, something that impacts our own strategic capabilities and, of course, peace and stability in the region as well. So that's going to be our focus in the debate today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi, and we've been also joined and going to be joined soon by Dr. Jamil Khan, who's former ambassador. Thank you very much, Farrukh, for joining us as always in the debate, and we're hoping to be joined by Dr. Jamil very soon too. But I'll start with you, and we've spoken about these US sanctions and the Foreign Office response, and while of course we are saying that this is biased and this is not something that is based on any strong foundations, it is something that has happened before and something that we're of course dealing with now. So what really can be Pakistan's response in terms of making the US and the international community understand and realize that we are a credible and responsible nuclear state?
Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think that it is of the utmost import because at this moment, as you have mentioned, the Prime Minister of Pakistan has actually reiterated the fact that Pakistan's nuclear program is for defensive purposes and only for deterrence, and yet international propaganda, mostly perpetuated by India, continues unabated regarding speculations about our program. And that has actually led to these various perceptions within Pakistan that perhaps the actual game is to get to Pakistan's nuclear program. But as you pointed out earlier, it is essentially about missile program, which is independent of nuclear program, right? And those sanctions are astounding because this argument that was given by one of the officials or State Department that somehow Pakistan can now actually target America, and perhaps that is a cause for concern. India has far bigger capacity, but India has never used it. India has never been sanctioned on these things. Why is it that Pakistan suddenly, out of blue, is being sanctioned on such flimsy argument? Pakistan is a close ally of the US. We have fought many wars together, and after that there is hardly any interest in Pakistan even to target any of America's allies, what to talk about America itself. But then the question arose, what exactly has changed? You realize that there was an election that took place in America, and after that there are certain things that seem to have changed because the Democratic Party has received such a drubbing, and President Biden is already on his way out, but along with him the leader of the party, that is Vice President Kamala Harris, is also going to leave. And there seems to be a kind of shift in the mood. perhaps because they have realized that alienating these two countries, Israel and India, did not go in their favor. And of course, when you are out of power, Indian caucus is a very strong one. So they seem to be actually trying to actually win back their favor. This is one take or one possibility. The other one would be that perhaps because of change of guard now, Trump administration's priorities are setting in, and that is where such sanctions have actually been introduced. But to be honest, do you think that Donald Trump would want President Biden to actually pardon his son, or for that matter, commute death sentences when Donald Trump has spoken very clearly in support of death penalty? So the fact remains that it is Biden administration, Harris administration on their way out. Remember that before election there were some very interesting cases. For example, the attempted assassination of a Sikh American, right? What has happened after that? All of a sudden that case seemed to have disappeared from America's radar and from State Department's radar. Similarly, Adani's case, DOJ had opened that case. Have you heard anything about that? So at this moment, it seems that Vice President Kamala Harris seemed to be actually focusing on winning back the support of India caucus, because in the 2016 elections where Democrats lost at that time, 77% of Indians in America voted for Hillary Clinton. But this time, despite a South Asian American actually contesting for the presidency, you will notice that the total number of votes have slid down to 66%. So, of course, Indian Americans are only 2% of America's total population, but even then they are very influential because they control many parts of Silicon Valley, and then they have influence elsewhere as well. So it seems that now on its way out, Biden-Harris administration is trying to woo back two countries, India and Israel. And in Israel's case, you have also seen that their emphasis on bringing peace to Gaza or to the region somewhere has just simply disappeared. So at this moment, it is clear what exactly is going on. Pakistan shouldn't be worrying too much about these things. Of course, Indian diaspora has great holding power, but even then, Pakistan is being targeted unnecessarily for political, experience, and that is not welcome. I hope that that changes with new administration in DC.
Right, absolutely. We've also been joined by Dr. Jamil. Thank you very much, Dr. Jamil, for joining us in the debate. And I'd like to question you with reference to what we've seen regarding the US sanctions. And while, of course, there's something that has happened in the past as well, I want your understanding of the timing of this particular decision and, of course, the entities that it involves, including the NTC. And then, of course, with regards to the change in administration in the US, what can be expected from Pakistan's perspective in terms of how we're actually going to deal with these sanctions?
Yeah, all these factors are quite significant. In fact, changing the US administration, yes, that's one part. But so far as the geopolitical policy of the United States is concerned, in particular containment of China, that we'll have to keep in our mind. And I don't foresee any change in that particular policy. Like I don't foresee the change in the policy of United States, foreign policy of United States in terms of the Middle East situation. Ukraine, yes, I do. Coming back on the sanction, yes, it's not the first time. We've been going through this sanction even in 80s and 90s. So we have seen the consequences. But so long as we are working within the framework of international law, that should be absolutely fine. Now, the sanctions, bilateral sanction, the United States is quite famous for it, imposing bilateral sanctions. And any country has the right to impose bilateral sanction. Even Somalia can impose bilateral sanction on UK or USR, but it depends who is how strong is the country. So yes, the sanction of United States definitely matters. And so far as we are concerned, as Mr. Pitafi was also mentioning, we've been the long-term partners of United States. We've been fighting war, we've been cooperating, we've been collaborating with them. And suddenly, because of the geopolitical landscape, if they start doing that, then I will first put across to your viewer some of the international law. One, that the Prime Minister of Pakistan has very clearly reiterated that it's a baseless, unjustified. But yes, that has some ground that the Prime Minister has said that. Now, this program, said program, as Prime Minister said, is the asset, is the property of the people of Pakistan, not of any person or the party. So that is the national asset. And this national asset has been built basically under the international law and that charter. I will quote two articles of the charter here. Number one is the every country has the right of self-defense, and we know that what kind of a threat we have from our neighboring country, what kind of an imbalance in South Asia countries have. If Pakistan did not have the balancing defensive capability, then perhaps India would have today been dominating in the entire South Asian countries. It's only Pakistan that it is keeping India on a bail length under the international laws. Now, what is the second international law? That's Article 2, Sub-Article 1 of the United Nations Charter, and in which it's a principle of sovereign equality. Now, India has entered into 7 different defense-related agreements with the United States. And those agreements are basically detrimental to affect the balance of power in South Asian countries. And Pakistan becomes vulnerable in that. And that is Limau. Limau is an agreement which deals with the logistics. Then under this agreement of India and United States, they have given a complete seaport of Gujarat to the American ships under on the grounds of logistics, but there are other activities going on. Then is Kamkau. Kamkau is basically security agreement, and security agreement by itself is a detrimental because it gives an edge to India against China, against Pakistan. And there are about 3 more, PECA and defense technology and trade and defense framework. So all these agreements are very serious agreements. But then these are the rights of the sovereign countries. It's the rights of the America to enter into the sovereign kind of an agreement with another country, but not at the cost of the third country, that is Pakistan. It completely disturbing the balance of it. So that we have the embedded right under the international law, which I have quoted. B, that our neighboring country, which is India, is already having such strong agreements with the United States, which, as a matter of fact, is causing the proliferation in the region, because they have started manufacturing arms, ammunition, aircraft assembly, and so on and so forth. So coming back, what is the geopolitical landscape which is changing? In fact, it's changing, and it's changing very fast. What is happening in the Middle East, and particularly what China containment policy, which is already there, how do they want to augment it? Because China is really having a very smooth trajectory of progress in terms of all fields, including trade, commerce, but more importantly, defense area. In defense area, China, in collaboration with the Russia, they have come parallel to the United States in terms of the space technology, or so to say, space weaponization. So once that is happening, United States and the policymakers would like that somehow China containment should be further empowered, or should be further activated. Pakistan has a pivotal geographical location. Now, Pakistan definitely starts having a very complex situation in terms of that containment, and Pakistan's sanction on Pakistan, on these 4 companies, after the sanction on China, China very recently has been sanctioned by United States on the human right violation, on the trade and technology restriction, and then on the investment in China restriction, defense firms and individuals. So after going against China, after going against Belarus, after going against Russia, and after going against Iran, now why Pakistan? That's a bigger question. Now Pakistan, basically, the excuse which United States, the spokesperson or the logic which has been put forth that Pakistan could gain the capability of reaching United States. Pakistan has never even has no strategic interest with the United States to really reach the United States through its missiles. There is no point, and it has never. In fact, Pentagon spokesperson was very wise, and he was. In fact, he was in a way he avoided that, and also said that no, that is not relevant. In other words, so that is one aspect. But yes, one country which could feel threatened, and already we have only to 2,700 kilometers range of the highest range missile, which is Shaheen 3, and Israel is about 332,000 or 33,000 from border to border from Pakistan. So even if they feel that Israel interest could be threatened, and we have never been, and we have never thought of, or we have never indicated, and we have no interest with Israel so far as our defense doctrine is concerned. Our defense doctrine is basically India centric because we have a threat from India, and that's why everything revolves around that. And we don't have anything to do with any other country around in terms of future conflict and in terms of future competition, so far as the defense competition is concerned. So under that backdrop, and under the backdrop that the new administration is going to come in, to what extent? Because the new administration and its president, they have already spelled out about about restraining China in terms of trade and commerce, in terms of imposing very heavy duties. That's fine. But then they might as well be thinking that how to really constrain China in developing its defense. And particularly what I mentioned is the space technology, and in collaboration with Russia, because Russia was already quite advanced in their space collaboration. And then comes the agreement between United States and India, where they have a defense framework agreement. And in defense framework agreement, they have the maritime security, and India is protecting that interest. And I've already mentioned to you about the Limau and about the Comcasa, which is the logistic, and Becca, which also covers their seaport. So from that standpoint, it is in the overall, in the wholesome game of the containment of China. If we picture ourselves, then we can figure it out. But yes, there is a solution to it, and the solution is that bringing a better awareness in the United States, engaging with the United States, because the United States understands it quite well how active we are in the forthcoming administration, that the time would come. But to my understanding, we needed little more activities. We have certain Pakistani origin people who are in a very close circuit of the Trump, the forthcoming president, Trump. And I don't know to what extent our Foreign Office and other entities have been able to approach such people. They are the ambassadors of Pakistan. And I know I can even, if need be, name those people who are volunteered to help Pakistan, very influential people. I'm sure the concerned embassy there, they might be thinking and trying on that, but we need to intensify that. If we don't intensify that, then these sanctions could be detrimental. Not only detrimental, but as we say that it's non-negotiable. We can't compromise on our defense policy. Our defense policy, our nuclear and our missile program, as I said, is covered under the international law. It's our sovereign right. And as I've mentioned, the article of our sovereign right also any country for that matter. So it is basically, as the Prime Minister has said, that it's a deterrence capability we have. And it's not first time the Prime Minister is saying. From time to time, Pakistan has been always echoing this point, that it's basically a deterrence. Imagine if we did not have these capabilities, then every now and then India was imposing a war on us, and it had become just like normal activities for India. But ever since we have these deterrents, now India thinks 100 times of really engaging with us in a full-fledged war. So, and MOFA, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have rightly said that it's very biased, it's very biased, and it's really unnecessarily targeting a country which has its sovereign right to possess and to develop such capability, which is covered and for on in the overall in the world landscape. The countries there is no higher power. Basically, the countries have to attain power to protect themselves. So Pakistan has done that, and Pakistan is doing that, and therefore I think we should, as a nation, as Prime Minister said, that we, as a nation, we should unite ourselves together. If we unite, we become stronger. We become stronger in terms of economy, in terms of trade, in terms of commerce, in terms of our cohesion as a nation. Because unless we do that, the external entities like the sanction by the United States, they can really be detrimental to our interest. And our Prime Minister, even in while addressing the cabinet, has mentioned that the way we've been involved in counterterrorism, the way we've been involved in all other security situation of the region, that if we get involved and we get unnecessarily pushed into this complexities, then those the fields where we are cooperating with the international entities, that would also get affected. So the political and diplomatic implication of this sanction, yes, it is challenging, but it's not impossible. Pakistan-U.S. relations have always been, having some kind of this complexities at times, but then it was again straightened, and we can do that again. Not a big deal.
Right, absolutely. And I want to build on that further, Farrukh, with
Yeah.
reference to how these capabilities, of course, are non-negotiable. And I understand that's the perspective that the Prime Minister has also put forward. But I want to understand what that means in actual terms, in terms of how then the relationship will be impacted and how we'll navigate that, despite the fact that while we, of course, want this relationship to flourish and we have strong relations with the U.S., if these moves continue to happen, what really then will be the way forward in terms of us balancing it out, and what can we actually do about challenging this then, or do we just take this along and also develop our relationship in parallel while such measures are being taken?
Right, Sarah. Before I answer that, let me remind everybody who is watching at this moment, these are dry winters in Islamabad. So all of us are under the weather right now. If I actually break into a cough, I hope that is forgiven. You're also under the weather, right?
Absolutely.
But regarding overall situation, look, on the face of it, these sanctions are not directly going to have any impact on Pakistan's program. Why? Because Pakistan is not doing much regarding this with the US. Pakistan is not importing technology from there. Pakistan's companies are not actually obtaining any materials from America at all. And whatever, bilateral trade goes on between Pakistan and another country, that there's a limit to how much America can have influence on that. But of course, it is another restriction which can, of course, in the future escalate, and it can create problems, right? But regarding containment of China, let me remind everybody that it is not prudent to count your chicken before they hatch, right? On containment, I think that America is in a bind when it comes to, and all other countries also, how to actually contain China, because on one side, you have to actually try to contain China. On the other, you cannot go for a decoupling because the American and Chinese economies are so deeply intertwined that decoupling would actually mean practically the end of international financial or economic order. In that context, of course, what happens then? You have to actually once again focus on who is actually creating more fuss about these issues. It is not the US, it is India. Before this episode, of course, when you look up when a shipment to Pakistan was, stopped somewhere, it was essentially in Mumbai, and a Malta flagship, organization was doing this, and situation was astounding when it comes to the state of affairs. At that time, it was Indians who stopped it and tried to create something bigger out of this. Now, I'm really reluctant to talk about India because somehow when it comes to India, I seem to have some kind of, magical thinking about it, or some kind of curse. Because last time when I was talking about Indian programs and their integration, the biggest problem was, and I mentioned that India keeps on procuring weapons from all over the world, and the problem then lies with its integration into their main system, right? And at that time, I also mentioned that their planes that they are importing from Russia, elsewhere, Israel, they have the habit of falling down. Within a couple of days, their CDS actually fell in a plane like that. So I don't want to actually, I want to be very careful, but let me remind everybody which country is irresponsible when it comes to its nuclear missile program. One thing to remember is that India has built an underground city in Rajasthan, and that is underground nuclear city. Then there are remarkable number of episodes of nuclear material being stolen from their labs, and it never is traced back. There were 2 or 3 episodes where nuclear material was carried to the airport or elsewhere. This is one aspect. Then the second one, their missile program. Remember what happened when an Indian missile erroneously fired or accidentally fired ended up in Pakistan. So it is India which repeatedly keeps on manipulating the system and also keeps on failing the standards of best practices. But because India is rich, because India keeps on procuring American weapons system also, because India has also lobbying capacity, and India then has huge influence in American media also. Because of that, India gets away with murder, while Pakistan, a country that has been in the past 20 years, Sana, Pakistan has acted very responsibly when it comes to its nuclear program and its missile program, and yet because you have to satisfy a bully. And mind you, there is this bully mindset of bully in India that you have to understand. India and China had recent skirmishes when it came to Ladakh, but what did India do? It ceded land, and a lot of land went to China. At least this is how their own analysts keep on pointing out. And then what happened? In the end, they had to actually take a bow. They had to actually mend fences with China, and they have resumed normal relations. But when it comes to Pakistan, because Pakistan is smaller in size and financially it is not as flush, because of that, India keeps on trying to bully you. And this is a new episode of the same thing. Or simultaneously, you can see that all mentions of India's misdeeds may be attempts to kill Sikh foreigners or Sikhs who are living abroad, that has disappeared from the monitors. Similarly, Adani's case has disappeared from international media speculation or mention, and that is because The Democrats have now realized that they have to, if they are out of power, and they have ceded trifecta power to the Republicans. Now they need more support from everywhere, and that includes India and Indian community, Israel and Israeli community, and that is why they seem to be ceding the space. Unfortunately, this is a problem. We have to ask, we have 2 or 3 problems. One is regarding our diaspora. We seem to have lost touch with them. Then the problem also lies with decisions that were made before this administration in Pakistan for 6 years. The way I mentioned, missile ended up in Pakistan, and Pakistan, despite having this great gift given by nature or by history, Pakistan dropped the ball and did not make anything of it, right? So what do? Then you have to go for lobbying. And even if you don't have fiscal space to lobby, you have to generate it to hire best lobbyists in America so that these things don't become permanent.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Jamil, I want your perspective on this as well. While we, of course, talk about the Indian involvement as well and this lobbying aspect too, there is, of course, a lot of concern in terms of how this relationship is viewed differently from the U.S. angle, particularly with reference to China. And so I want your take on how do we actually get our stakes up in terms of this balance that Pakistan will have to keep.
Eye on the development of geopolitical development in the area in our region, and then we have to align ourselves according to our friendship with some of our best of the best friends like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, like other Gulf countries. They are the best of the best friends we have, and they've been always rescuing us in so many occasions where we were in a difficult time and we were riding a very rough tide of the sea at that time. But we should take them along because they are quite good friends with the United States also. So therefore, that is one. And second, the kind of development which is taking place in terms of Middle East geopolitical landscape, we have to keep an eye. That is point number 2. Point number 3, that yes, lobbying, hiring lobbyists is one, but Pakistan has never been able to gain as much as Pakistan has spent on the lobbyists. Basically, Pakistan have some very influential people, Pakistani origin. Still, they have a very soft corner of Pakistan. They still are the loyal Pakistani in a way. And then we have to make best use of, like India is doing. India is relying on its Indian nationals in the constituencies of various influential congresspersons. And also, India is relying but they had a long-term planning that they've been able to get their youngsters into the State Department, into the Defense, into the FBI, into the CIA, and all those organizations. So that advantage. But more important than that, basically, India, yes, has more interest so far as Pakistan missile program is concerned. But we should not ignore that what is the kind of a possible threat which Israel might as well be feeling. And because US is the main protector of Israel, and that is very clear to the entire world. So maybe that they're forcing that they're under about 250 kilometers range, which is short of that, Pakistan may be able to build up. So far as the United States is concerned, Pakistan, A, that do not have that capability, and B, Pakistan has no interest in that. Number one, Pakistan has no interest in Israel also, so far as their our defense is concerned and their defense is concerned. But now coming back on that, India, yes, has the interest, and US does not have that much of interest. I would say it's like, Israel has the interest what they are doing, and the US does not have the interest. Basically, it's the support, is the support which Israel gets and the support which India gets from the United States. Fine enough. The two countries have their sovereign right to have their own relations of any kind, so long as it is not at the cost of the other countries like Pakistan. Now, in this case, Pakistan sanction on Pakistan. Sanction becomes significant and serious on one point, because any company which is sanctioned, the other countries, 193 countries of the world, once they have the relations or the trade relation with those countries would also have the danger of coming under sanction, and that is what the treasury rule of United States is. And therefore, those companies who are sanctioned, they find themselves quite cornered in terms of their SWIFT system, in terms of using the American financial system. That is one. And second, the fear of having sanctioned the other company, dealing with other companies. Those companies have the fear of having sanctioned by the United States. So that's why if we do not control it at this stage, and if we do not really, whether we do it through the lobby, whether we do it through our diplomatic channel, and of course we should utilize all these channels available to us to make them understand that, okay, fine enough, India is looking after your strategic interest and your geopolitical interest in terms of the Indian Ocean and in terms of the South China Sea. Fine enough. But Pakistan is not going detrimental to your interest or detrimental to your defense interest. So far as Pakistan is concerned, or any other country, they also have their sovereign right to have relations with any other country. In this case, China. China has been always such a strong friend that we always give example that higher than Hamelites and deeper than the sea, sweeter than the honey, and harder than the steel. So we have those kind of relations, and that is very much covered within the international law. And therefore, the robust step which is there, which we take to safeguard our own security and our own assets, should not really bother anyone. Just having a kind of a hypothesis that Pakistan can build a kind of a missile which could reach to the United States, that is totally hypothetical, and it is just the kind of assumption which they are having. So, first of all, we should also understand that our command and control system has been not only admitted, but has been acknowledged and appreciated by the United States itself. And obviously, all other entities like IAEA in terms of our nuclear say development, and in terms of our missiles, and in terms of our. So we have always been very open to the international inspectors. We have never stopped them. We have been inviting them. We've been discussing them. We've been part of the non-proliferation. We have been part of weapon of weapon of mass destruction spread. So we've been participating in all international forum to really help the international community. And as my friend Pitafi was mentioning, that India, can get away with so many things like nuclear theft of the nuclear material, like human rights violation. And China is being sanctioned, but India is not being sanctioned, which has been reported by the Human Rights Council of United Nations, and not once but twice. And that has been reported all over in the entire world and has been presented to the General Assembly as well as the Security Council. But nothing happens because India is a blue-eyed boy. And India, because there's a purpose, India is serving at this point in time so far as geopolitical landscape is concerned. Therefore, if India does all the atrocities which has been reported in the Religious Freedom Report of United States itself, but India get away with it. Because at the moment, India has that kind of relations with the United States that it's serving the purpose of both the countries. And therefore, we should have that in our mind, and we should factor in while we are doing our diplomatic outreach to the entire world, and more importantly, to the United States. We should select the best of the best and the dynamic diplomats to do all these things. And I think we are short of that, and we have to really explore the other avenues to outreach.
That is, of course, valid. Thank you very much, Dr. Jamil, for joining us and being a part of the debate. Farrukh, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, very quickly, I wanted to actually respond to a couple of things that Ambassador Saab actually mentioned. One is lobbying or our failed attempts in the past regarding lobbying. One incident, Sana, comes to my mind. Back in 2010, when there were floods in Pakistan, one of the companies in New York actually allowed, gave one board to Pakistan that you can actually put out message for the, flood relief. But what message was playing there? It was regarding the greatness of Pakistan's political elite. So there has been this problem with our lobbying effort that it has always been very narrow focused, myopic and self-serving. When it is regarding country, I think that will hold. In what exactly is lobbying, Sana? Any lawmaker in any country needs two things to stay in power. One, votes. Second, monies. So if you have any of those things, it is going to take and it is going to have an influence.
Yeah.
Regarding something that was very ominous, and I think that Ambassador Saab is right about that, Israel's movement also in Middle East should be seen very closely, because there seems to be this killing spree, first emboldened by Gaza, it went into Lebanon, now Syria. Now, if you look at it, it is eyeing Yemen, and that actually should already be very worrying to us, because Yemen sits next to Saudi Arabia, which is very close to every Muslim's heart, right? So, in that state of affairs, I think we have to be, and unfortunately, somehow somebody trying to flag Pakistan's missile program at that time is ominous. But Pakistan is not Middle East. Pakistan has wherewithal to take all the pressure. And regarding these companies being sanctioned, I don't think that any American sanction is going to affect any Chinese company, and they keep on functioning despite so many sanctions already. But still, it will be better if you can get rid of these sanctions or any such speculations about Pakistan's programs.
Right, absolutely. Thank you, Farrukh, for joining us in the debate as always. That's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.